You know, some of my earliest memories actually of connecting Dad to the Masonry world is, you know, when you're a little girl or a little boy, and your parent comes home and you run up and you're still small enough to hug their legs. I still have that smell in my mind of mortar from his jeans from him coming home. You know, that's the thing about Dad is he started at the very bottom of the food chain and as a laborer and worked his way up.
I'll never forget the first day I saw Paul. He was walking across the parking lot coming over there, and I was running the job. He had his level over his shoulder with that metal box. He always carried a metal box on it, and long, lanky guy. And he came up and asked for a job, and we needed people, so I put him on. And first time I'd ever seen him in my life, and I thought I knew most of the bricklayers in that area at that time. But anyway, he went to work for us, and man, he was a hard worker. He put in a lot of block. At the end of the day, he was sweaty. His clothes were all wet and all, and just an awesome hand. And at that point, he said that he was thinking about starting his own company, and that we got that going. And if I never ever needed a place to work, to give him a call. Really, kind of the first larger job we did was a job out at Fort Hood, and I can remember we were sitting in his pickup the morning that job was going to start, and we hadn't really talked about my role or what I was going to be doing or anything, but he asked me, you know, if I would run his work and all, and I told him. I'll never forget what I said to him because it's how I believe. But I told him, as long as I can put God first, my family second, and this job third, I'll give you everything I've got. And his response was, I wouldn't have it any other way.
We formed a joint venture, I think in 2016, called Legacy Masonry, which was a joint venture between P&S and Brazos. And honestly, it was a brand new experience for me, and there is no way in the world we would have ever done a joint venture if we didn't have the respect for Paul and Susie, the way they've operated, the way they've supported the Masonry, Texas Masonry Council, and of course the MCAA. And it takes a special person like Paul to create a company like P&S.
Well, Paul legitimately cares about his employees. When you're walking the job with Paul, he won't walk by one of his employees without sticking out his hand and saying, "Hey, I'm Paul Odom, nice to meet you. Thank you for all your hard work."
Dad fundamentally cares about people. He wants everyone to succeed. So every person that worked with us was somebody he saw part of his family.
I'm very proud of that. We didn't lose people. Part of that was the apprenticeship program. They knew they had an opportunity, if they'd work hard and prove themselves, they'd have an opportunity to become a bricklayer. But the other thing was how he treated his people. He paid us well. Like I said, he didn't come out there stomping and jumping around and kicking rocks and yelling and screaming. He talked to us like we were grown men, you know, and he treated us fairly. And you could tell he's genuine. His faith is genuine, which is very important to me, and he lives that out in his life. He treats people with respect.
I will not forget that one time I was sitting at a dinner table with some friends, and somebody said somebody's name, and I said, "Oh yeah, that person works for us." And he looked over at me and quietly, just like he always was, he said, "Liz, don't ever say that someone works for us. They work with us." And that was his philosophy for his business, and I think that's why people stayed around.
Paul treated every one of his employees like they were family. And that's why they were so close to each other. I remember the day that we decided to form a joint company, and he had asked me to come talk to his employees. And I could sense real quick they weren't 100% for it, because they worked for Paul Odom. They had given their life to him and Susan. I couldn't really figure out which one they loved more. I almost think they loved Susan more than they did Paul. But Paul and Susan was one. That was the life they lived, and that's the way they ran their business. And their people was very, very loyal.
He was and is successful partly because he chose a really good woman. And my mom, Susie is the S in P&S Masonry, and I think together they were a dynamic team.
I believe Paul had a vision that was far-reaching. He wasn't a person that looked at the present day. He knew where he was at, but he was always looking out front of where our industry needed to be. From a marketing standpoint, from constructability standpoint. Paul was a very good person to be able to teach details to architects, to make it easier to design with masonry. So he has a special place in our heart here at Brazos, always will. And when I think of him as a teacher more than a competitor, and definitely think of him as a friend. And that, to me, is the most important.
I love you like a brother, Paul, and the time that we had together, I'll never forget. And you taught me a lot, and I think we learned a lot together. And I'm just very proud to say that I was at least a little part of P&S Masonry, and I'm proud of the time that we spent together, and I'm proud of our friendship. And just know that I love you and Susie and Liz and all of you. And congratulations. This is well deserved, and I'm very proud of you.